And it's the Cult Doctor. And today we have Islam. We're going to cover some of the difficulties in Islam, the main doctrinal positions as opposed to in Christianity. The Bible is the Quran and the Hadiths. A lot of people don't know or are not aware of the Hadiths. The Hadiths are the sayings of Muhammad, and they are considered on a par with the almost with the Quran. So any errors there are serious. First of all, we want to start out with Muhammad married an 8-year-old and consummated that when she was like 9 or 10. Perversion at its worst, and it's one of the things that most Muslims do not like speaking about and try to avoid. Also, Salman Rushdie had printed a book, The Satanic Verses, and somebody tried to kill him, poked his eye out with a knife. But all he was quoting was there was verses in the Quran that they call satanic, that Muhammad's ever satanic. He thought, I'm not sure if I'm getting this information from this angel from Satan or is it an angel? Now, even Paul said that if an angel comes down and preaches another gospel, run away, beware. And the two people who started false religions with angels appearing to them is Mormonism and Islam. Okay, some of the errors, scientific to start with, is one, the sun sets in a muddy spring. And that's in Surah 1836. The sun rests or is in a bed. I mean, it's a fixed place and it's like a bed, actual bed. 3, sun and the moon are swimming in orbits. You kind of figured it's like water. The sky is a solid dome or a roof or a ceiling. And that's Surah 222 and 78:12. The stars are used as missiles against the devil. Surah 67. Muhammad pegs or stakes to stabilize the earth. In other words, he was looking at the earth as something that needed stable, nailed down like a tent. That's where he's getting it from. He lived in a tent. 7, women have half the intelligence of men. That's pretty brutal. Quran in Surah 71:19, the Arabic word is carpet. The earth is flat. It says that the earth is flat, which was a common thinking in those days, said the earth was flat. The Bible says that the earth is a sphere and hangs upon nothing. So which one's correct? 9, iron was sent down to the earth from a cosmic origin. Well, no, it was invented by human beings. 10, seminal fluid source described as between the backbone and the ribs. And no. Surah 86:6. Semen formed from the loins and ribs again. Surah 28. Also, different stages of embryology he got wrong. If God's telling you this information, he's wrong constantly. What does that say? 12. The embryo shape then made into bones, then clothed with flesh. Surah 28. The objection is the little sequence doesn't match modern embryology. 13. Sperm describes this mixture from 2 sources, male and female. Surah 53, 45, verse 45, and Surah 78:2. And modern genetics show that both parents contribute DNA equally, but not the sperm. The Bible describes a woman as the seed provider. The man is the seed, the woman the eggs. 14. The sky is held up by pillars. Surah 31:10. 15. The sky is made up of smoke or smoky at creation. And we know that not to be true. This is a primitive cosmology that was common in those days. 16. There's 2 orbits of the sun and moon, implying similarity to each other. This can place very different with the motions of physics of the sun and the moon as we know them now. 17. The monuments were created after the earth to prevent shaking. Well, I don't even have to comment why that's ludicrous. 18. The moon is split. Astronomical claim, Surah 51, verse 1. Objection, there's no verifiable astronomical evidence in modern records to support a lunar split event. 19. The seas are separate and do not mix. Surah 55, 19-20. And the objection is that the oceans mix via currents, barrier phenomena exists, but wording can be misleading. 20. The earth is spread out, flat, imagery. Surah 15, verse 19, and Surah 71:19. And the objection is poetic flattery is often taken literally by critics as implying a flat earth, but he did believe in a flat earth. You wrongly described the earth as a carpet instead of a ball. 21, creation in 6 days, but human cosmology issues. The objection is ambiguity over days and their length versus cosmological timelines. 22, rain from clouds coming from mountains. Surah 78:14. Now we know that's not true. Mountains can affect weather, they don't cause weather. At 23, animals created in pairs versus hermaphroditic exceptions. Objection, simplistic for species when complex sexual systems and asexual reproductions are possible. 24, every living thing is made of water. Surah 21:30. And while life is water-based, the phrase can be read as an overly simplistic statement of biochemistry. 25, humans being created from a clot. Yeah, blood clot. Surah 98:1. Again, we know that's not true. 26, the sun is a lamp. Surah 28:13. And no, he's trying to present these simplistic reasons for things that are well beyond his educations and most people at that time, especially those in the Arabian Peninsula. 27, high heaven is well guarded. The idea that the penetration of the sky is impossible. Surah 21, verse 32. We know with the modern space program that's not true. 28, mountains have pegs, again, and effects on earthquakes. And we know there's no pegs, there's nothing holding these mountains in place except that what we know is from geology. 29, human ribs and backbone as an origin of the spouse of creation, Eve from Adam's ribs. Surah 4, verse 1. The objection is biological origins of humans oppose literal single rib creation, except for when God took a rib out of it. 30, stars burning and visible. Well, we already covered missiles. 31, the sky and earth being joined and parted like a bang. Ambiguity, chronology, objection. Some critics argue this is vague and not the same as the Big Bang. 32, the seas being hidden under a barrier where waves don't cross. Surah 55:19. The objection is mixing occurs. Barrier phenomena are narrow and local, not global. 33, the sun disposed to run its course and then set into place. An apparent contradiction. Surah 36:38. The objection is inconsistent imagery of motion versus stopping. 34, this is pretty vile. He asked his followers to drink camel urine for their health. Urine, we know, urea is toxic. 35, iron, mighty and useful phrase implying terrestrial origins. Surah 57:25. Objection, iron's extraterrestrial and neurosynthetic origin complicates literal readings. 36, the existence of two east and two west. We know that's wrong. There's one east, there's one west. 37, the seven heavens as little concentric spheres. And the objection is cosmology with seven little skies differs from modern astronomy. 38, stars used to guide for navigation versus described as missiles. Objection, contradictory functions ascribed to the stars. He has one answer for the stars and another one. And we can guide by the stars, but why is he contradicting himself? 39, the sun is wrapping and covering day to night cycles, imprecise mechanics. The objection is metaphoric language, again, interpreted literally by critics. 40, the idea that mountains were created from earth after it was spread out. That is ridiculous. That's not the way things work. Let's see what else we have here. 43, the claim that the sun moves on a fixed path like a boat. Surah 36:38. Phasing sometimes read as implying a surface track motion. Objection, oversimplification model of celestial mechanics. Human creation from dust versus modern. Well, we're not going to cover that one. The 46, a description of wind and clouds is driven in a way implying meteorological ignorance. 47, the sundial or sun setting place, phasing in multiple verses. Surah 18:38. The objection is conflicting imagery of the sun's behavior. 49, statements about stars being close enough to be thrown at devils. Surah 67:5. Not true. And 50, alleged contradiction in embryological verse, sequencing and timing. Surah 23:12. The objections, critics say these stages and timings are imprecise, inconsistent, and anatomically incorrect if read literally. So there's a great deal about Islam and the historical errors. It places Moses' wife, Abraham's wife, Mary, all incorrectly in their timelines when they existed. We know that from even secular historical sources. One day we'll do something on the historical inaccuracies, but the Quran and the Hadith are not a reliable source, especially from a man who marries an 8-year-old. And we have to say these are not from the words of God, as contrasted with the Bible. Now, if you contact me at cultdoctor@zero.com, get all kinds of information, but one of the good ones is a video, Evidence That Demands a Verdict by Josh McDowell, volumes 1 and 2, and he has a compilation of the 2 of those in a new book, Ready Defense. And this shows the scientific evidence and proof mathematically that the Bible's true. He covers all the prophecies in the Bible, from Genesis to Revelation. Jesus' fulfillments is enough to prove the Bible. He said that he would be born in Galilee, but he would come out of Egypt, but he'd be called Nazarene. All those sound contradictory, but they all happened. In every event on the cross, he'd be pierced in the side. His legs wouldn't be broken. It was always happened to those crucified. He'd be pierced in the side, on and on. Every verse came true. And so the odds of all the prophecies in the Bible coming true, which they have, is 1 to the 124th power, which means it's impossible. So either the writers were psychic and could tell the future, and we know that's not true because the National Enquirer is never right every January when they try to predict the future. But that the Bible has been written either by a divine being or aliens, and that's the latest evolutionary theory. Believe it or not, Darwinian evolution is no longer believed by the scientists. They've skipped that. When you go back to the last 60 years, they jumped from that initially to microevolution that happens in very small events, and that didn't work, so they went to macroevolution. Giant jumps, that didn't work. And they went to punctuated equilibrium, and that is massive jumps in time, and that didn't work. So now they are at panspermia, and what is that? Life came from alien sources, either alien beings or deposited from another place. And they can't explain how that life developed, though. So they've jettisoned, for the most part, in modern evolutionary thinking, they've jettisoned the old evolutionary models because DNA and genetics have destroyed it. We now know that genetic coding is a complex computer code, far more than even AI can develop right now. And it's impossible for coding to be the same as if I had a Apple computer and I had an Android computer and tried to make them compatible. No, they're not going to work together. The coding is different. One is not going to develop into another. And that's the same as animal coding. We believe in horizontal evolution. That is, species can adapt within species. You can have dogs adapt into different types of dogs, but one species cannot develop into another. Vertical evolution is impossible. A cat can't become a dog can't become a cat because the DNA coding is impossible. Well, I hope that helps you today. You get a little evolution information, a little about Islam. If you have any questions, again, cultdoctor@netzero.com, Facebook, Cult Doctor. Subscribe over there and get some information daily on devotions. Every morning I post devotions, the Bible commentary, some prayer, and apologetics videos. I always like to end it with the salvation. You should be born again. A man cannot enter the kingdom of God without being born again. It says in Romans, if you confess with your mouth that Jesus is your Lord, your boss, your king, believe in your heart he rose from the dead, you shall be saved. For everyone who calls on the name of the Lord shall be saved. Great day.